Hi everyone, I'm Bubbles from Susan's family. Today I'm bringing you the Checkered Cozy Bag from Retro Nostalgia series. This product consists of the outer layer, inner layer, and strap. First, crochet the outer and inner layers separately. Then assemble them once completed. Finally, make the strap. Let's start learning how to crochet the outer layer. It's made up of motifs. Sewing the motifs together, edging, lining fabric, and buttons. First, crochet the motifs and sew them together. After completing, add the edging. Finally, sew on the lining and buttons. Let's start learning how to crochet the motifs. There are 4 types of motifs. First, let's learn how to crochet motif 1. Use the magic ring technique. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise from the starting point, using chain stitches, double crochets, half double crochets, and slip stitches. Now, let's show. For convenience of watching, I'm using cotton yarn for this demonstration. For specific yarn, color schemes, and hook sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and paper instructions. Start with a double magic ring. After completing the cast on, work the first round. Make 3 chains as beginning chain. These 3 chains count as 1 double crochet, then work 1 double crochet in the ring. Once completed, work 3 chains. Then work 2 double crochets. Next, work 3 chains and 2 double crochets. Repeat twice. After completing, work 1 chain, then close the magic ring. Next, hook into the top of the 3rd chain. Half double crochet into the 2 loops above to join. This completes the first round. Now work the second round. Make 3 chains as beginning chain. Then work into the chain space of the previous round. Work 2 double crochets. Then work 1 chain. Next, work 3 double crochets in the adjacent chain space. Three chains and 3 double crochets. Treat the stitches worked in this chain space as one corner. Then work 1 chain. Next, work into the chain space of the corner from the previous round. Work the corners respectively. Work 1 chain between them. Continue crocheting. After completing the last chain, work 3 double crochets in the starting chain space. After completing, work 3 chains. Complete the starting corner, then join with a slip stitch to the beginning chain. This completes round 2. Since the next round requires a color change, leave a bit of tail and fasten off yarn. Hide all yarn tails on the wrong side. Now begin crocheting round 3. Take the corresponding color yarn. First join the yarn in the last chain space of the previous round. Then make 3 chains as beginning chain. Continue working 2 double crochets in this same chain space. After completing, work 3 double crochets in the next base chain space. Consider these 3 double crochets as one side of this round. Next, work the corner in the adjacent chain space. After completing, continue following the side and corner method. Work this round completely. Finally complete the starting corner. Join with a slip stitch. This completes the 3rd round. Now let's work on the 4th round. Start by making 3 beginning chains. Then work double crochets corresponding to each stitch along the previous round sides and corners. Work double crochets evenly into each stitch. Consider the completed stitch pattern as one side of this round. This completed stitch pattern serves as one side of this round. Next, work the corner. Pay attention, because the corner position requires a color change. Work an incomplete double crochet first. Then take the corresponding color yarn. Draw the yarn through. This completes the color change and finishes this double crochet. Continue working 2 double crochets in this chain space. Incorporate the yarn tail. Three chains. 2 double crochets. Pay attention, the second double crochet should be an incomplete stitch. Then switch to the previous color yarn to pull through. You can see that, when changing colors, an incomplete double crochet is worked one stitch before the color change. Then proceed with the color change. Whenever you need to change colors at a double crochet position later on, follow this method. Continue working one double crochet in this chain space. The corner is completed. Then continue crocheting the edge. Pay attention to weaving in the yarn tail. Next, continue following the method for edges and corners. Work this round completely. Note: change colors when crocheting at the corner position. After finishing, join with a slip stitch to the beginning chain. Pull tight. Finally, leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. This completes the fourth round. Motif 1 is completed. Next, learn how to crochet motif 2. It also uses the magic ring method. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise along the foundation chain. The new stitch techniques used are front post double crochet, bobble stitch with 3 double crochets, and DC 3-in-1. Now, let's show. First, cast on the double magic ring. Then, make 3 chains as beginning chain. Next, work 11 double crochets into the ring. Counting the turning chain. Here, a total of 12 stitches were worked. Then, tighten the ring. Next, join with a slip stitch to the beginning chain. Pull tight, leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. Tuck the yarn tail to the wrong side. This completes round 1. Now, crochet round 2. First, take the corresponding color yarn and join. Insert hook from right to left on the right side. Pick up the beginning chain from the previous round. Pull the yarn through. Then, work 3 chains as beginning chain. Continue picking up the beginning chain from right to left. Work 2 incomplete double crochets. After completing, yarn over and draw through all loops in once. Treat the completed stitch as a special 3 double crochets bobble stitch. Next, work 3 double crochets into the adjacent stitch. That is, work 3 double crochets into the same stitch. Secure the yarn tail. After completing, work into the adjacent stitch, a front post double crochet, 3 bobble stitch. Insert the hook from right to left on the right side. Work 3 incomplete double crochets. Then yarn over and draw through all loops in once. This completes the front post double crochet, 3 bobble stitch, later referred to as FPDC bobble stitch. Next, work 3 chains. Then work another FPDC bobble stitch into the adjacent stitch. Consider these 2 FPDC bobble stitches, and the chains between them, as one corner for this round. Work 3 double crochets into the same stitch as one side. Next, follow the method for sides and corners, to complete this round. After finishing the last FPDC bobble stitch, work 3 more chains. Complete the starting corner. Join with a slip stitch to the special starting FPDC bobble stitch. Pull tight. This completes round 2. Leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. Now let's crochet round 3, join yarn in the last chain space of the previous round. Make 3 chains to start. Continue working 1 double crochet in this same chain space. Then work 1 more double crochet into the same stitch, where the slip stitch was made. Next, since we're changing colors, first work an incomplete double crochet. Then take the same color yarn from the previous round. Pull the yarn through. Next, work a front post double crochet bobble stitch. First work 3 incomplete front post double crochets. Then switch to the previous color and pull through. Continue with 2 more double crochets. Treat the front post double crochet bobble stitch and the double crochets on both sides as one side of this round. Next, work the corner in the adjacent chain space. First work 2 double crochets. Three chain stitches and 2 double crochets. Continue working the sides and corners. To complete this round, pay attention to color changes while crocheting. After completing the starting corner, slip stitch and pull tight. This completes round 3. Leave a little yarn tail and cut it off. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side. Now work on round 4. Make 3 chains as beginning chain. Then work double crochets into each stitch of the previous round sides and corners, correspondingly. Treat the completed section as one side. Continue working the corner, pay attention to color changes. After completing, continue working the sides and corners to finish this round. Slip stitch and pull tight after completing the corner position. This completes round 4. Leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. This completes motif 2. Next, work the remaining motif 2s, using the same method. That concludes motif 2. Now let's learn how to crochet motif 3. As you can see, motif 3 is half of motif 1. It also starts with the magic ring method. Work back and forth along the starting point. Now, let's show. First, make a double magic ring. Then work row 1. Make 3 chains as beginning chain. Then work 1 chain interval. Next, work 2 double crochets in the starting hole. Three chains. 2 double crochets. 1 chain. Finally, work 1 double crochet. After completing, tighten the ring. This completes row 1. The right side of this row is the right side of the piece, that is, the side where the yarn tail is on the left hand. Next, work row 2. Make 3 chains as beginning chain. Since it's working back and forth, turn the work piece. First, turn over. The wrong side is facing you. Then work 1 chain. Next, work 3 double crochets in the next base chain space. After completing, work 1 chain, then work the corner in the next base chain space. After completing, work 1 chain. Work 3 double crochets in the next base chain space. One chain. Finally, work 1 double crochet in the turning chain from the previous row. This completes row 2. Leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. Next, crochet row 3. First, join yarn in the last stitch of the previous row. Note: join from the wrong side. After turning, the stitches are positioned at the top left. After joining the yarn, refer to the chart to complete this row. Once finished, row 3 is completed. Leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. Next, crochet row 4. First, join yarn on the beginning chain of the previous row. Make 3 chains as beginning chain. Then work 1 chain. Then complete this row. Note: change colors while crocheting. This completes row 4. Leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. Motif 3 is completed. Now follow the same method to finish all remaining motif 3s. That concludes motif 3. Next, learn how to crochet motif 4. As you can see, this motif is half of motif 3. The crocheting method is almost identical. Follow the techniques learned earlier. Refer to the chart. Complete all motif 4s. Note: color changes are required during the last row crocheting. Now complete this part on your own. That concludes motif 4. Once all motifs are crocheted, proceed to sewing. First, arrange the motifs according to the layout diagram. Then temporarily secure the corresponding sides and corners with stitch markers. If you don't have stitch markers, you can use safety pins or paper clips instead. Then sew the corresponding sides and corners together using the whip stitch method. First sew horizontally, then vertically. You can also decide based on your own preference. Now let's watch the demonstration. Here I'm demonstrating with a swatch. Some motifs don't have color changes. Not for actual reference. Only demonstrating the sewing technique. Cut a yarn tail about 2-3 times the length of the sewing position. Thread the needle. Here I'll sew horizontally first. Pick up motif 3 and motif 2. Place motif 3 below. Position the wrong sides of the pieces facing each other. Then sew the corresponding sides and corners of these 2 motifs together. Start sewing from the corner edge. For motif 3, insert into the top strand of the beginning chain's V-shaped loop. For motif 2, insert into the half stitch near the corner chain stitch. Leave a small tail of yarn at the beginning. You can sew the edge twice for reinforcement. Next, insert into both motifs simultaneously the half stitch near the adjacent chain stitch. Then insert into the adjacent stitches together the nearby half stitch. Continue sewing along the stitches. Insert into the half stitch near the stitch simultaneously. Don't pull the yarn too tight while sewing, nor too loose. After sewing it up, at the chain stitch position of the corner, first sew the half stitch near the first 2 chain stitches. Leave the last stitch unsewn for now. Next, take the 2 adjacent motifs. That is, motif 1 and motif 2. Motif 1 on top. Motif 2 at the bottom. Then with their wrong sides facing each other. Start sewing from the corner chain stitch. First sew the middle chain stitch, and the left side chain stitch. After sewing, continue along the stitches. At the corner position, only sew the first 2 stitches. After sewing, continue to take the next 2 adjacent motifs, sew along the corner chain stitch and edge position. Start sewing from the middle chain stitch. When you reach the beginning chain position, just pick the insertion point of the slip stitch. Sew the last double crochet of motif 3 to the adjacent chain stitch of motif 2. After sewing, tie a knot on the wrong side, and hide the yarn tail. Hide the starting yarn tail on the wrong side as well. This completes one horizontal edge. Now sew the other horizontal edge as well. At the motif corner position, only sew 2 chain stitches. Complete the rest on your own. Look! This is my sample after sewing the other horizontal edge. Next, sew vertically. First, follow the same method as horizontal sewing. Sew the two opposite edges together. Similarly, for motif 3, sew the beginning chain stitch to the middle chain stitch. Then continue sewing along the corners and edges. When reaching the junction of 4 motifs, first sew the remaining chain stitches. If there are still noticeable holes, you can add 1-2 extra stitches here. Once sewn, there should be no visible holes. Next, sew the 2 adjacent motifs together. Sew the final double crochet to the middle chain stitch. After sewing, tie off and weave in the ends. Also hide the starting yarn tail. Now sew the other vertical edge. Look. This is how it looks after sewing both horizontal and vertical edges. Next, at the 4 corners, attach motif 4 respectively. Sew the last row of motif 4 to the remaining edge of motif 2. The sewing method for all 4 corners is identical. Now I'll demonstrate with any corner. Let me demonstrate the sewing method. Start sewing from the beginning chain of the last row of motif 4. Insert into the beginning chain. Then insert into the middle chain stitch of motif 2 simultaneously. Or into this double crochet of motif 3. Next, insert into the adjacent chain stitches of motif 4 and motif 2 together. Then sew along the stitches. Finally, sew the chain and double crochet positions. After sewing, tie a knot on the wrong side, and weave in the ends. Now one motif 4 is sewn on. Now everyone follow the same method to sew the remaining motif 4 pieces. Look, this is my finished sample after sewing. The fabric piece is square shaped. After the motifs are sewn, next we'll add the edging along the sewn motifs. Crochet 2 opposite sides. The new stitch technique used is front post double crochet. Now, let's show. Turn one side up. Then on the outermost motif, pick up the edge stitches from the beginning row. Here the beginning row edge is the beginning chain. So pick up the entire beginning chain. After joining the yarn, make 1 beginning chain, then crochet 3 single crochets in the same place. After completing, pick up the entire double crochet in the adjacent row, crochet 3 single crochets. Continue to pick up the beginning chain in the adjacent row and crochet 3 single crochets. Let's see. This row is all about picking up the edge stitches of the motif and crocheting single crochets. Continue crocheting this row all the way down. When encountering the starting chain of motif 3, pick up the chain space and crochet 1 single crochet. After completing, leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. This completes the first row. Next, work row 2. Join yarn in the first stitch of the previous row. Make 1 beginning chain. Then work single crochets correspondingly. Complete this row. After finishing, leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. This completes the second row. Next, work row 3. First, join yarn in the first stitch of the previous row. Make 1 beginning chain. Make another single crochet in the same stitch. Work 3 chains. Then work 1 front post double crochet in the 5th stitch of row 1. The technique for this stitch is yarn over. From right to left on the right side, pick up the single crochet stitch, then complete as a double crochet. Slightly pull up the loops. This completes the front post double crochet. Then work 3 chains. Then skip 3 stitches and work 1 front post double crochet. Note: insert the hook into the corresponding single crochet of row 1. Let's see. This row is worked into the single crochets of row 1. Insert the hook and work front post double crochets, with 3 chains between them and 3 chain intervals. Continue this process. Complete this row. Finally, work 1 single crochet in the last stitch of row 2. Leave a yarn tail, fasten off, and weave in ends. This completes row 3. Now let's work row 4. Similarly, join yarn in the first stitch of the previous row. For each subsequent row, always join yarn in the first stitch. Make 1 beginning chain. Work 1 single crochet in the same stitch. Then work 3 double crochets. Skip a row. Insert hook into the corresponding single crochet on row 2. Note, the chain of row 3 goes to the back. After completing, work 1 chain interval, then work 3 double crochets. Note, skip a row when inserting hook. Continue with this method. Finish the entire row. Finish with 1 single crochet. Cut the yarn and weave in ends. This completes row 4. Now move on to row 5. Join the yarn. Make 1 beginning chain. Work 1 single crochet. Then work 3 chains. Skip 3 stitches. Then pick up the front post double crochet on row 3. Work 1 front post double crochet. Pick up this stitch from right to left. Note, place the chain stitches of row 4 behind. After finishing, work 3 chains. This row picks up the front post double crochet from the previous row. Work 1 front post double crochet. Work 3 chains between. Place the chain stitches of row 4 behind. Continue to finish this row. Fasten off and weave in ends after completing. This completes row 5. Next, follow the method of rows 4-5. Continue all the way down to the last row, fasten off and weave in ends after finishing. Now let's crochet the last row. First join yarn. Make 1 beginning chain. Then work 3 single crochets. Next, because we need to change colors, work an incomplete single crochet. Take the corresponding color yarn. Pull the yarn through. Complete this single crochet and the color change. Next, work an incomplete front post double crochet. Then change colors. Continue with 3 single crochets. Note, the third stitch is an incomplete stitch. Next, everyone continue with this method. Finish this row. After finishing, cut the yarn and weave in ends. The last row is completed. So one side of the edging is explained. Next, everyone follow the same method on the opposite side using the same technique to crochet the edging. Now everyone complete it on your own. So the edging explanation is done. Next, sew the lining together. Take out the lining fabric. Place the lining fabric underneath the work piece. If the lining fabric is much larger than the fabric piece, you can trim off some excess. If they're similar in size, no trimming is needed. Here I'll demonstrate the trimming method first. Roughly draw a circle along the outer contour with a pen. Then roughly trim along the outer contour. Next, sew together. If you have pins at home, you can use pins to temporarily mark a few points. Secure the lining fabric to the workpiece. When securing, slightly fold the lining fabric inward. Leave about 1 row's space for the edging part. Leave about 1 stitch distance on both edges. Now fix the lining fabric completely. Next, sew together. Cut about 1 m of sewing thread. Insert into a finer sewing needle. Fold in half and tie a knot at one end. Start sewing from either side. First, secure the yarn tail. Then alternately insert into the lining and fabric piece to sew together. Pick up the loops on the wrong side surface of the workpiece. Try not to show visible stitches on the right side. For this specific sewing method, you can also sew according to your preference. Sew this edge completely. When sewing to the corner position, here you can sew 1-2 extra stitches to secure. Next, continue sewing the lining completely. During the subsequent sewing process, if the yarn tail is not long enough, you can tie a knot and weave in ends on the wrong side of the fabric. Then take new yarn to continue sewing. After finishing, fasten off and weave in the ends. This completes the lining sewing. Next, at one end of the edging, approximately at the middle position, sew one button on each side. Now, let's sew. Cut about 60 cm of sewing thread, thread the needle. First, secure the yarn tail. Then take one button. Sew across the 4 holes in a crossing pattern. After sewing, tie off and weave in the ends. This completes one button attachment. Next, everyone sew on the other end of the edging. Sew the other button on as well. That concludes the button section. The outer layer is now complete. Next, we'll learn how to crochet the inner layer. We will start from foundation chain. Work back and forth along the starting chain. The new stitch technique used is treble crochet. Now, let's sew. Note that because this yarn has long fibers, the stitches may be hard to see when crocheting. It's recommended to watch the demonstration before crocheting. Start with foundation chain. Leave a yarn tail and make a slip knot. Then hold the yarn in your left hand. Insert the hook. Gently tighten the starting tail. Then crochet one chain stitch. After completing one chain stitch, the loop underneath on the hook is the first chain stitch. Feel it with your hands, there's a small hole. Place a stitch marker on this small hole, mark it as the first stitch. Continue crocheting chains, yarn over, draw the yarn through. This is the second stitch. Keep it going. 3, 4, 5, 6. Seven, 8, 9, 10. Now you've crocheted 10 stitches. Place a stitch marker on the 10th chain. If you have plenty of stitch markers at home, you can also mark the 5th stitch. Now feel it. There's a bump between two consecutive chains. The indented spot is where the chain stitch is. Continue crocheting another 10 chains. Mark it. Repeat this process. Keep crocheting. Mark every 10 stitches. Look everyone, this is what it looks like after completing the foundation chain. Now work on row 1. Don't remove the stitch markers from the foundation chain yet. Chain 4 to begin. Mark the 4th stitch. These 4 chains count as one treble crochet, corresponding to the last stitch of the foundation chain. That is, the stitch marked by the stitch marker. Then start crocheting from the 6th chain from the end. From the stitch marker at the end of the foundation chain, move left to the next chain stitch. Insert into the small hole and work 1 treble crochet, mindful not to twist the chain stitches. If you feel the chain stitches twisting, when moving left along the chain stitches, twist it with your hand, then continue crocheting. If you are not sure, check the position of the stitch marker, the direction should all be downward. The technique for treble crochet is, yarn over the hook twice, insert, draw the yarn through, then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Repeat 3 times. This completes 1 treble crochet. Continue to the left to find the next chain. Insert into the small hole and work 1 treble crochet. Continue to the left to find the next chain. Work 1 treble crochet. Continue crocheting to the left. Insert into the small hole and work treble crochet. Counting the beginning chain. You've worked 5 stitches. Repeat this process. Continue working treble crochet along the foundation chain. As you crochet, you can also place markers every 10 stitches. Place a marker before working the 10th stitch. That is, place it on the loop currently on your hook. This marks the 10th stitch. Continue working along the chain. Keep placing markers every 10 stitches as you crochet. This makes it convenient to check the stitch count later. Place a marker on the last stitch. The final stitch perfectly lands on the starting marker position. This completes the first row. Next, work on the second row. First, remove the starting stitch marker. Then, chain 4 as the turning chain. Similarly, the turning chain corresponds to the last stitch of the previous row, that is, the marked stitch. Place a marker on the fourth chain. Turn the work. Work treble crochets corresponding to each stitch of the previous row. Start working from the stitch adjacent to the last stitch of the previous row. Leave the stitch marker from the previous row in place for now, since the previous row wasn't marked with one stitch corresponding to one stitch. So when working this row, before making each stitch, locate the stitch, hold it with your hand, then work the stitch. Keep the position held steady while crocheting. From the marked stitch moving left. Feel the left side stitch. That is a small hole. There's a noticeable dent. If you can't find it, use a needle to insert into the small hole for assistance. The stitch position is easier to insert compared to other positions. Pay attention that the stitch should be close to the edge of the fabric. Once completed, continue feeling the adjacent stitch on the left side. Work 1 treble crochet. Repeat this process. Finish the entire row. Continue marking every 10 stitches, including the beginning chain. You've now worked 3 stitches. Pay attention to the last stitch. Crochet at the stitch marker position on the edge of the previous row. That is, on the beginning chain. This completes the second row. The stitch marker from the previous row, after checking the stitch count for this row, can be removed. Pay attention to the beginning and ending of each row. Always mark. The middle section can be decided whether to mark based on your skill level. Now work row 3. This row uses the same technique as row 2. Chain 4 as beginning chain. Mark it. Note, 4 chains as beginning chain, always count as 1 treble crochet, correspond to the last stitch of the previous row. Turn the work. Start working treble crochets evenly. Remember to mark. Pay attention to the last stitch of the row. Crochet into the starting chain of the previous row, which is the marked position. Once completed, row 3 is done. The stitch marker from the previous row can now be removed. Next, continue with this method. Finish the remaining rows of the inner layer. Refer to the chart for specific row count, or compare with the outer layer. Both ends should extend about one extra row. Leave a long yarn tail and fasten off. That completes the inner layer. After finishing the inner layer, sew the inner layer to the outer layer. Sew both sides of the outer layer to the inner layer. Start by sewing one side. The inner layer doesn't need right, wrong side distinction. Place the outer layer on top of the inner layer, with the lining side facing up. Both ends should have similar reserved distance. Position the inner layer roughly in the middle. Then along one side. Temporarily secure with stitch markers. Cut thread about 2-3 times the sewing position. Same color yarn for inner layer. Thread the needle. You can smooth the fluffy part downward. Then on the wrong side of the fabric. Sew together using whip stitch method. Secure the yarn tail first. Practice securing several times in actual work. Note: leave about 1 row distance on the inner layer. Pick up one edge stitch here and sew together. Continue along. Evenly sew the side seams of inner and outer layers. Fasten off and weave in the ends. One side is now sewn. Now sew the other side. You can temporarily secure with stitch markers. Then cut yarn tail about twice the sewing length. Thread the needle. Here you can weave in the starting yarn tail first. Then proceed to sew. Secure the yarn tail first. Begin whip stitching. Fasten off and weave in the ends. Now both inner and outer layers are sewn. Next, turn the outer layer right side out. Then fold the fabric piece like this. Now sew the top part of the inner layer. Same as before. You can temporarily secure with stitch markers. Then sew together. You can secure at multiple points in practice. Thread the reserved yarn tail through the needle. Pull the yarn tail slightly to the side. Then whip stitch along the last row and starting point. Pay attention to the fold on the side. Sew all 4 layers together. Don't miss any stitches. Just pick 1-2 strands on the edge for each stitch. Continue sewing this part. Fasten off and weave in the ends after finishing. Now both inner and outer layers are sewn. Buttons can be placed on the inner layer. Just fasten them at roughly corresponding positions. Finally, let's make the strap, made of pre-made strap. Strap piece and D-ring. Use corresponding yarn for the finished product strap. Insert through the chain spaces. Now, let's sew. Cut yarn twice as long as the chain. Thread the needle. Pay attention, I'm using a swatch here. The strap is shorter. First insert into one end. Leave a small tail at the beginning. Then weave in and out through the chain spaces. Complete the chain. After threading, if the fur is sparse, you can pick with the darning needle. Pick out the fur. Or if there's remaining yarn, you can thread it back again. Tie a knot and weave in the ends after threading. Then tie a knot and weave in the starting tail. Next, the crocheting method for the piece is similar to the inner layer. Also using the foundation chain method, crochet back and forth along the starting chain. But here we only work double crochets, and with fewer stitches and rows. Now follow the chart to complete it yourselves. Leave a long tail and fasten off yarn after finishing. After finishing, wrap the strap and sew it along the last row to the starting point. You can also secure it first with stitch markers. The sewing method is the same as sewing the inner layers beginning and ending. Whip stitch along here. After sewing, you can move it to your desired position. Now complete it yourselves. That's all for the strap piece. Finally, sew on the D-ring. On the inner layer, above. Align roughly with the outer edge and sew. Take the straighter side of the D-ring and sew it to the fabric piece using whip stitch. Now sew it yourselves. After sewing, attach both ends of the strap. That's all for the strap. Up to this point, this bag is completely covered. If you still have unclear parts during the crocheting process, don't hesitate to join our Facebook group to get supports. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.